I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who cheats on her husband. But here I am, 43 years old, and I did exactly that. Let me tell you how I destroyed my marriage and ended up begging on my knees for a second chance that never came. It started so innocently. Julian and I had been married for 15 years with twin daughters who were the center of our world. But somewhere along the way, Julian stopped seeing me. I don't mean literally. He was there coming home every evening, sitting across from me at dinner, sleeping beside me at night, but I felt invisible. He'd come home, eyes glued to his phone, barely asking about my day. When I'd talk about work stress, he'd nod and mumble some generic advice before turning on the TV. Between us, I wanted to scream, "Put down your damn phone and look at me." Then Liam joined our team at work. He was younger than me by a few years, with this energy that lit up the office. The first time he asked my opinion in a meeting, really listened, and then told everyone how brilliant my idea was, I felt this rush I hadn't experienced in years. Someone actually valued what I had to say. It was intoxicating. Our weekly team lunches turned into just the two of us grabbing coffee. Coffee turned into texts after hours. Texts turned into drinks. One Friday, when Julian was working late again, I told myself it was innocent, just a friendship with someone who appreciated me. Those work wives with their sidelong glances whenever Liam and I laughed together? They were just jealous, obviously. Basic office who couldn't stand seeing someone else happy. The first time Liam kissed me was in the parking garage after work. I should have stopped it, but instead, I kissed him back. I drove home that night, with my heart pounding, telling myself it was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. But the next day, I wore my favorite dress to work. And when he suggested we meet up after hours to talk about it, I agreed. We started meeting at this hotel downtown. I'd tell Julian I had late meetings or drinks with the girls. He never questioned it. Part of me wanted him to show he cared enough to be suspicious. But he just kissed me on the cheek and said, "Have fun." I'd stare at myself in the hotel bathroom mirror, wondering who this woman was. Sometimes I'd feel this wave of guilt, looking at the wedding ring I still wore. But then Liam would compliment me in ways Julian hadn't in years, and I'd push the guilt away. I got sloppy around December. Started staying out later, caring less about my excuses making sense. I convinced myself Julian was too wrapped up in his own world to notice. I even started thinking maybe I deserved this. This excitement, this feeling of being desired. Maybe Julian and I had run our course, and this was just life's way of showing me there was more out there. I started imagining a different future, one where I wasn't just somebody's wife and mother. By mid-December, Liam was talking about us spending a weekend away together. I agreed without hesitation. I didn't even make up a good excuse for Julian, just told him I had a work retreat. The weekend was everything I'd fantasized about. For the first time in months, I didn't even think about Julian or my family. It was just about me and what I wanted. New Year's Eve, Julian suggested we have a nice dinner, just the two of us. I was annoyed. I'd been hoping to meet up with Liam, but I went along with it, pretending to be the devoted wife. Julian seemed different that night, more attentive, asking questions about work. For a moment, I felt a pang of what we used to have. But when he asked about my work friends, I got defensive, changed the subject. I didn't know then that he already suspected something, that he was giving me one last chance to come clean. I failed that test spectacularly. I never imagined our marriage would unravel so fast, or that my carefully constructed double life would come crashing down around me on a random Tuesday in January. It was January 3rd when my world collapsed. I was getting ready for work, thinking about the text I'd send Liam about meeting up later when Julian walked into our bedroom holding my phone. I'd forgotten it on the kitchen counter that morning. A rookie mistake. One look at his face, and I knew he knew everything. "Who's Liam?" The way he said the name made my stomach drop. His voice was so cold, so unlike the Julian I knew. "And why is he texting you about last night being amazing and how he can't wait to see you again?" I tried denying it at first, a reflex really. But Julian had already gone through my messages. He'd seen months of texts, the hotel receipts in my email, everything. I watched his face transform as the reality sank in. The disbelief, the pain, the anger. It was like watching someone die. In that moment, I finally realized what I'd done. Not just an affair, but a systematic betrayal of the man who had built a life with me. "How long?" he asked. When I told him 6 months, he physically recoiled. 6 months? Half a year of lying to his face every day. He didn't yell. That almost made it worse. He just looked at me like I was a stranger, someone contemptible. Then he packed a bag. I started crying, begging him to talk about it, saying we could work through this. He just walked past me like I wasn't even there. What do I tell the girls? I asked, panic rising as I thought about our 3-year-old twins coming home to find their father gone. Whatever you want. I'll call them later. And then he was gone. I called in sick to work, then spent hours trying to reach him. Texts, calls, emails, nothing. By afternoon, I had to decide what to tell our daughters. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, that their mother had blown up their family because she was selfish and bored. So, I lied. Told them Dad had been called away on an emergency business trip. It would give me time to fix things, I thought. But Julian didn't come home that night, or the next, or the one after that. Days stretched into weeks. January crawled by with no sign of him except brief calls to the girls. He wouldn't speak to me at all. The girls kept asking when he was coming back. I kept making excuses. Liam texted a few times, but I blocked his number. The affair seemed so trivial now, so pointless against the wreckage of my real life. Work became a blur of avoiding questions about my personal issues and escaping to the bathroom to cry. Those same office ladies who used to give me side-eye now whispered behind their hands when I passed. Maybe they'd always known it would end this way. 3 weeks after he left, Julian finally answered my call. His voice was formal, detached. "I need you to send the girls to your parents this weekend," he said. "We need to talk, and I don't want them there for it." Hope surged through me. He wanted to talk. Maybe he was ready to forgive me, to try again. I quickly arranged for my parents to take the twins for the weekend, telling everyone Julian and I needed some couple time to work things out. I spent that Friday cleaning the house obsessively, buying groceries for his favorite meals, even putting on the perfume he'd given me for our anniversary. When I heard his key in the door that evening, my heart nearly burst from my chest. But the man who walked in was almost unrecognizable. Julian had always been fit, but he looked thinner now, harder somehow. His eyes, once warm when they looked at me, were flat and businesslike. This wasn't a reconciliation. This was a negotiation. I didn't care. The moment I saw him, I fell to my knees in our entryway, literally on my knees, sobbing, clinging to his legs. "Please forgive me," I begged. "I'll do anything. We're stronger than my mistake. Yell at me, hate me, make me suffer, whatever you need. Just please don't throw away 15 years. He stepped back, looking almost embarrassed for me. "Don't humiliate yourself," he said quietly. "It doesn't help either of us." He helped me up and guided me to the kitchen table, keeping a careful distance between us. Then he laid out his findings from 3 weeks of consulting divorce attorneys. The news wasn't good for him. In our state, the courts tended to favor mothers in custody arrangements. Despite my infidelity, I would likely get primary custody of the twins and keep the house. He would pay child support and possibly alimony, despite my betrayal being the cause of our split. "So, here's where we stand," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I can't afford to divorce you right now, financially or for the girl's sake. But I want to be very clear. Our marriage is over." I started to protest, but he cut me off. "The marriage is dead, Alara. You killed it. I'm not going to financially ruin myself or lose my daughters because you couldn't keep your legs closed for some guy at work." I flinched at his words. Julian had never spoken to me like that before, had never been cruel or vulgar. But what shocked me most was what he said next. "I refuse to give up my home, my family, or my financial stability for an unfaithful." That word hit me like a physical blow. In 15 years of marriage, through countless arguments, he had never once insulted me. But the cold way he said it, like he was stating an obvious fact, broke something in me. I realized then that the man I married, the one who had loved me unconditionally, was gone, and I had destroyed him. "So, here's what's going to happen," he continued. "I'm moving back home for the girls' sake. We will present a united front for them and our families. But we are roommates now, nothing more. I don't want to hear about your day. I don't want your opinion on my life. We discuss the girls, the house, and finances. That's it." I nodded through my tears, willing to accept any terms if it meant a chance to eventually win him back. I didn't realize then that he meant every word. that our marriage truly was over in every way that mattered. The COVID pandemic hit 2 months later, forcing us into an even more intense version of our Cold War marriage. Lockdown meant being trapped together in the house, maintaining our facade while keeping emotional distance. We established careful routines to avoid each other. I took the home office for remote work. He set up at the kitchen table. We coordinated schedules for helping the girls with online school. We were like perfect co-parents, except we weren't partners in any real sense. Our only conversations were about restocking the pantry, who would take out the trash, or what the girls needed for school. Sometimes days would pass without us exchanging more than a dozen words. The twins noticed the tension, of course, but we blamed it on COVID stress. Everyone's marriage was struggling during lockdown, we told them. It wasn't entirely a lie. By the end of 2020, we'd settled into a routine that looked normal on the surface. We even started sleeping in the same bed again. The separate rooms had raised too many questions from the girls. It was purely practical, Julian assured me, for appearances. The first time we had sex again was after a rare night when we both had a few drinks. It happened without discussion or affection, just physical need after months of isolation. Afterward, Julian got up immediately, showered, and returned to his side of the bed without a word. The message was clear. This changed nothing between us. These encounters became occasional releases of tension, but Julian made sure I understood they meant nothing. He never kissed me, never held me afterward. Sometimes he would look at me with such detachment during these moments that I felt more alone than if I'd been by myself. I tried everything to break through his walls. I left little notes in his lunch, bought his favorite foods, suggested date nights. He would either ignore these gestures or acknowledge them with cool politeness, like a stranger accepting kindness they didn't request. I watched him build a life separate from mine. Even while living under the same roof, he started working out more, reconnected with old friends online, took up new hobbies. It was like watching him become a new person, one who had no place for me. Meanwhile, I was stuck in limbo, unable to move forward, but unable to go back to what we had. The affair seemed like a lifetime ago, a stupid, selfish indulgence that had cost me everything that actually mattered. Liam had long since moved on to someone else at work. I'd hear the occasional office gossip about them, feeling a strange mix of jealousy and relief that I was no longer the subject of workplace whispers. As months turned into years, I became desperate for answers. How did other couples survive infidelity? Why couldn't Julian forgive me when so many other spouses eventually did? I started obsessively reading relationship forums, self-help books, and articles about affair recovery. I learned all the right terms: emotional labor, radical honesty, affair fog. I tried using them with Julian, suggesting couples counseling, affair recovery programs. "There's nothing to recover," he said when I showed him a book about healing after infidelity. "You're not getting it, Alara. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt, I just don't care." But I couldn't accept that. I kept trying, kept hoping for some crack in his armor. I arranged for my parents to take the girls for a weekend, and prepared a special dinner, wearing the dress from our first date. Julian ate the meal, complimented the cooking, and then went to the garage to work on his latest project. When I followed him out there wearing lingerie under my robe, he looked at me with such pity that I wanted to disappear. "This isn't a movie, Alara," he said quietly. "You can't seduce me into forgetting what happened. You can't cook or screw your way back into my heart." "Then what can I do?" I cried, desperation making my voice shake. "What do I have to do to make you love me again?" He put down his tools and finally looked at me directly. "Nothing. That's what I've been trying to tell you. There's nothing you can do because I don't want to love you anymore. I choose not to." Those words, "I choose not to," haunted me. The idea that love could be a choice and he was actively choosing not to love me anymore. It went against everything I believed about our connection, about what we built together. But as another year passed with no thaw in his feelings, I had to face the possibility that he meant it. That our marriage, while legally intact, was emotionally over. My friends didn't understand why I stayed. "Just leave him," they'd say. "He's emotionally abusing you." But they didn't get it. I couldn't leave because deep down I still hoped. And because the alternative, admitting total defeat, facing the girls with the truth, starting over at 40-something, terrified me more than this half-life with Julian. So I stayed, watching our daughters grow, sharing a home with a stranger who used to be my husband, waiting for a miracle that never came. The girls turned 18 last month. High school graduation came and went in a blur of ceremonies and parties where Julian and I performed our well-rehearsed routine of congenial co-parenting. We'd gotten so good at it that some people actually complimented us on having such a strong marriage after all these years. If they only knew. The morning after the graduation party, I came downstairs to find Julian at the kitchen table with a stack of papers. He pushed them toward me as I poured my coffee. Divorce papers, already filled out, and a real estate listing for our house. The girls are legal adults now, he said calmly. They're heading to college in August. There's no reason to keep up this charade anymore. I stared at him, coffee forgotten. You've been waiting for this, I realized aloud. All these years, you've just been waiting for the girls to turn 18. He nodded, not even trying to deny it. I told you our marriage was over. You chose not to believe me. What about the house? Our retirement plans? Everything we built? We'll sell the house and split the proceeds. I've already divided our retirement accounts. The settlement is fair. You'll be fine financially. His detachment was staggering. He'd planned everything right down to the timing. I'd been living with someone who'd been counting down the days until he could leave me, and I hadn't even realized it. You've hated me all this time, I whispered. No, he said, and for the first time in years, his voice held a hint of emotion. I loved you too much. That was the problem. I had to teach myself not to. Day by day. And now I'm free. He stood up. I'm staying with a friend until the house sells. The girls already know. I told them last night. You told them what? Panic rose in my throat. Everything, Alara. The affair, the lie about the business trip, all of it. They're adults now. They deserved the truth about why their family fell apart. I felt like I was drowning. Why would you do that? Why would you turn them against me? I didn't have to try, he said. You did that yourself when you decided to cheat, and then when you lied to them about it. They understand why I stayed, why I waited, and they understand why I'm leaving now. Later that day, I tried calling both girls. One didn't answer. The other picked up, but was distant. Said she needed time to process everything. When I went upstairs, I noticed Julian's closet was empty. He must have been moving things out gradually for weeks, planning his escape while I remained oblivious, still hoping for reconciliation. That night, alone in our house, I finally faced the truth. I hadn't just lost my husband with that affair. I'd lost my daughter's respect, my family, my future as I'd imagined it, and the worst part, a small, honest voice inside me whispered that I deserved it all. The divorce was finalized last week. The house sold quickly. The girls are barely speaking to me as they prepare for college. I'm moving into an apartment next month. My first time living alone in 20 years. Yesterday, I saw Julian at a coffee shop with a woman I didn't recognize. They weren't being romantic, just talking, but he was smiling. Really smiling in a way I haven't seen in years. When he noticed me, he gave a polite nod and turned back to his conversation. No anger, no pain, just nothing. As if I were a distant acquaintance from another lifetime. That's when it finally hit me. He'd meant every word. Our marriage had died that January day 4 years ago. I just refused to attend the funeral. While I'd been desperately trying to resurrect something already gone, he'd been grieving, healing, and moving on, all while sharing a home with me. Some might say Julian was cruel to wait all these years, planning his departure while pretending to accept our arrangement. But honestly, I know now that I deserved every minute of it. Each day of living with the shell of what we once had was justice. For the months I spent betraying our vows. The most devastating part isn't losing him. It's knowing that I did this to myself. That one choice to turn towards someone else instead of working on my marriage cost me everything. And still when friends ask what happened, I hear myself saying things like, "We grew apart," or, "Sometimes love just dies." Even now, I can't fully own what I did. Maybe that's why Julian couldn't forgive me. Not because of the affair itself, but because even after being caught, even after seeing the damage, I never truly took responsibility. I begged for forgiveness without understanding what needed to be forgiven. So here I am, 39 when it started, 43 now, single, half estranged from my children, starting over. All because I thought I deserved more excitement, more attention, more everything, without considering what I already had. If you're reading this and thinking about cheating on your partner, let me save you some time. The thrill isn't worth the aftermath. The moment of being desired by someone new doesn't compare to the years of coldness that follow. And that fantasy you have about being forgiven if you're caught, that's the biggest lie of all. Because some things once broken can never be repaired, no matter how hard you beg.